Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the new Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. It is a Monday night, which means there's a primetime football game on, and you know what that means. It's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs with craveable wings, ice-cold beer, plenty of big screen TVs, and the world-famous Hooters girls. It is the number one franchise in the league. Tonight, catch the fan filler, 10 boneless wings, fries, a dressing, and a drink for only $16.59. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the next 2.5 hours, because we have that Monday night game for you here on Extra Sports 1300. And I would like to get your thoughts on today's topic. 719-247-1313 is the phone line and the text line for your convenience. Now, we start in a most obvious spot, the spot we normally start on Mondays, and that is with the Denver Broncos. Now, if you don't want to be impressed with the Broncos beating the Panthers by 2 touchdowns, you shouldn't be. You don't have to be. I'm not. And Sean Payton's not. But how Bo Nix plays in every single one of these games matters. And for him, he's a rookie. All right? Even the lowly Panthers are a level of team that Bo Nix had not experienced until he got to the NFL. So I don't think we could be so quick to dismiss a day like that from Bo Nix, considering he's still a rookie and still developing. Cortland Sutton, Zach Allen, some of these other guys, like being the Panthers is not anything to write home about, but the way that Bo Nix played, I think, is notable and is worth diving into, because I don't think there is any game in which you just say, oh, forget that game. And you have to be fair to Bo Nix. If a week ago or 10 days ago, it looked like Bo Nix could not complete a pass from the pocket, and you note that, you have to be fair and say he completed many passes from the pocket just 10 days later. I think yesterday was the finest throwing performance of Bo Nix's young career. And it started on that second drive. Going through his progression, setting his feet, most importantly, throwing a ball not to where receivers are, but where they are going to be. The touchdown to Adam Troutman was even leading a receiver. Now, for context, which I think is appropriate, Sean Payton did mention coming out of halftime that they were playing a lot of base packages. And they're more, for lack of a better word, exotic offensive looks that they were giving Carolina. They were at an advantage. And Sean Payton pointed it out and reiterated it after the game. Okay, so I understand why, and I'm not saying this is just who Bo Nix is from now on. But again, given what the conversation around him and his pocket presence or lack thereof was 10 days ago, you got to turn around and say he had pretty good command of the pocket yesterday. still against a level of competition that he has only seen for 2 months now. Here's Bo Nix on what went right.
I thought I had good vision throughout the day. Guys were out there making, good catches, great plays. And so, I thought we put a complete game, at least in the first half. We got to do better in the second half. Trying to find the same rhythm that we had in the first half. But overall, I thought it was good, growing each and every week and, finding ways to get better.
And that's the point there at the end. We are week to week with Bo Nix. How does week 1 stack up with week 2, week 2 to week 3, week 3 to week 4, and so on and so forth? 10 days ago, he had open receivers, could not hit them. So this, I thought yesterday was another example of Bo Nix not making the same mistake twice in a row. Last week, his footwork was all over the place, right? It wasn't good. Clearly, that's something that he worked on this week, and it was infinitely better. And him throwing the football was infinitely better from the New Orleans game to this one. And that shows signs of development. That shows signs of growth. He's learning. He's learning from his previous mistakes, and he's working on them to try and not replicate them. This is why you play him right away. This is the argument. Now, there was is it better that he just sits? This is the argument. Bo Nix right now is the argument for, as long as they don't look lost in the preseason, you play them during the season, right? You get them out there immediately. This is why. Bo Nix is the reason why, is the counter to what Tom Brady said a couple of months ago when he was painting with a broad brush and saying none of these guys can play immediately. Yeah, some of them can, and Bo Nix is one of them. But this is why you put him out there. It's like that 10,000 hours thing, right? 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. Even against the Panthers, these hours count towards that. Right? It doesn't impress you as much as if Bo Nix does it next week or this week against Baltimore, or if he does it against Kansas City, but it's adding to it. The more reps that he's getting, the better he's getting. The muscle memory that comes with that, the confidence that comes along with that, to Sean Payton's point yesterday.
All of these are steps, confidence steps. We've seen it. The key is, and I've said it, the key is around him. Are we good enough at these other positions around him? All right. And that's what we're constantly looking. We have to paint the picture. And when we do that, we'll have success. We'll move the ball.
And you also have to give some credit to the guys he was throwing to, right? They got open. They were catching the ball, which has at times been a bit of an issue. But all of these reps, Bo Nix is banking, and he's going to be better for it. Whatever he turns out to be, he will be better for having this season under his belt, going through all the things that he's gone through already and will go through from here on out. We just have to be fair. Right? And last week, I said that he reminded me more of Taysom Hill than he did Drew Brees. Yesterday, in the first half, to Bo Nix's point, second half was another story, and it leads into a whole nother conversation I want to get into a little bit later. But he looked more like Drew Brees than Taysom Hill yesterday. And he's going to phase in and out. It's all a part of the growth process. So if no one's giving him any slack for airmailing Lucas Kroll on the opening drive, then he should get credit for hitting Adam Troutman in the end zone. Like, that's the way it should work. And for him to have a first half like that, right? Situations that Bo Nix doesn't do well in. Third down, tie games. When we're past the first 15 scripted plays, and he was good in all of those areas yesterday. And you can even zoom out a bit here with the way that Bo Nix has played and take a more macro approach to it. In the month of October, the month Sean Payton's stress was going to be vitally important to the growth of not only Bo Nix, but his football team. Bo Nix ranks first among rookie quarterbacks in passing touchdowns, passing yards, and touchdown to interception ratio, in addition to all the stuff he's done with his legs. Bo Nix is starting to play his way into the Rookie of the Year conversation. If he continues like this and continues to progress, then he's going to be in that conversation. Now, I'd have Jaden Daniels well above him. Malik Neighbors is going to be back on the field tonight for the Giants. I think he's probably ahead of him. Yeah, Brian Thomas in Jacksonville. Marvin Harrison had a really nice day against Miami. Not saying he's leading the thing. But he's starting from a place where he started far behind everyone else, especially Jaden Daniels. If we're just looking at quarterbacks, he started far behind where Jaden Daniels he started, and he's making up ground. I don't know if he's going to get there because Jaden Daniels threw a Hail Mary yesterday that won the Commanders the game. The hype around Jaden Daniels isn't going away, and I don't see Bo Nix overtaking him for Rookie of the Year. But when you're doing some of the things that Bo Nix has showcased during this month, you deserve to be at least mentioned. This is significant development we are looking at from Bo Nix, and we could look back down the road, year from now, 2 years from now, and say, remember that Carolina game? That was when Bo Nix showed that he could win from the pocket. We may look back on that Carolina game in that way. Now, here's the trick. And it applies to the entire Denver Broncos team. Doing it against Carolina is one thing. Doing it on the road at Baltimore and Kansas City the next 2 weeks is another. Bo Nix did a great job from 10 days ago. Working on his footwork, being better in the pocket, throwing with anticipation. He improved all of those things from the New Orleans game. Can he sustain it? Can he continue it going up against the next two teams that he will face? That's going to be even more interesting to see. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Bo Nix's performance yesterday. Again, cannot stress this enough. The first half. Get into that a little bit later. Coming up next, go back a day into your weekend. Saturday, the Colorado Buffaloes with another, not just Big 12 win, but another decisive Big 12 win. We'll talk about it next on Extra Sports 1300. My friends from Circa Resort and Casino and I want you to experience Las Vegas the weekend of November 23rd, which just so happens to be the weekend Denver takes on Las Vegas. One listener and a guest will get round-trip airfare, a 3-night stay at a Circa property, and 2 VIP passes to the very first Neon City Festival. Enter to win. You got about an hour till the polls close, if you will. So if you're listening online, it'd be easy enough for you to do. It's right there on the front page. But you can enter to win at extrasports1300.com, and a winner will be chosen today. All right. Out of Saturday's win by the Colorado Buffaloes, you see a lot of sentiment. The transformation is complete, right? This team getting to bowl eligibility, the transformation in Boulder, it's done. Dion has done it. And I don't disagree with that sentiment, but I think it's important to recognize why that sentiment is held by many people after Saturday's win. The attention that Colorado is getting is different. Last year, it was the novelty of it all. The novelty of Deion Sanders, this Pro Football Hall of Famer, coaching this team, and his son's the quarterback, and his son's really good. And the novelty of Travis Hunter playing both sides of the football, and all the attention and College Game Day and everything like that. It was the novelty of it. They didn't do a lot, all told, last year to earn the attention. Certainly they weren't getting the type of attention that they're getting now. Because the kind of attention that they have received most of Deion Sanders' time in Boulder is about the novelty. And that kind of attention is fleeting. It's fickle. Programs get that kind of attention when they paint their field red. Like the newness wears off and the novelty of it wears off. That attention goes away. And you saw that, especially during the Pac-12 season last year. College Game Day didn't go out there anymore. Fox Big Noon Kickoff didn't go out there anymore. The kickoff times were a little bit less weren't in prime time. They did have games that were on the Pac-12 network. Like, people lost interest as the season wore on. The kind of attention that this team is getting now is the kind of attention that is paid to good football programs. They're bowl eligible for the first time in a real season since 2016. They are ranked 23rd in the AP poll because they earned it. They earned their way into the poll. Last year, let's just be real, when they were placed into the top 25, that aged poorly. Not only did the Buffaloes not hold up their end of the bargain, but that TCU win with every passing week looked like it was less and less impressive. They earned this ranking. And Saturday was another game in a recent trend where they're doing things that good teams do. It's not all Shedeur and Travis, although they remain the stars and the most important players, but those two linked up for that touchdown at the end of the first half, which gave Colorado control of that football game, right? That middle eight that has become in vogue now in football. Winning the middle eight. CU is doing that routinely now. They're taking control of these games and they're not letting up. They've beaten 3 of their last 4 conference opponents, right? It's one thing to win in the non-conference, and there can certainly be quality wins in the non-conference, but the conference is what matters. And not only are they winning in conference play, they are beating 3 of their last 4 conference opponents by at least 2 scores. You don't do that if you're a novelty, if you're only 2 players. You just don't. And we're seeing it. Now Isaiah Gustav getting 91 yards. Dallin Hayden has flashed. We see Micah Welch popping up every now and again. It's not just one running back. It actually looks like there's a system in place to run the football in Boulder. And it doesn't matter if it's Hayden or Welch or Gustav. They're all running the ball effectively if it's their turn. You know, if they could get all 3 of these guys all together at the same time, all running the ball effectively, it would kind of remind me of that 0-1 team where you had, Chris Brown, remember, and Bobby Purify was on that team, shouts Colorado Springs, where they had the multiple backs that they rotated around. Like, maybe CU could do that. Although with their still placing the most importance on the passing game, I don't know that there are enough carries to go around. But it looks like it's not just one running back. When it's not just one running back, it speaks to the team. It speaks to the system, the coaching. And there are different dimensions with this football team. Right? And so now you're saying, 3 of the last 4 weeks, the Buffaloes are the better team. Not Shedeur and Travis beat Cincinnati. Colorado beat Cincinnati. It's not just that Shedeur is better than Brendan Sorsby or Noah Fafita or KJ Jefferson. The Buffs are better than the Wildcats, better than the Bearcats, better than the Golden Knights. That's what they're proving because they're doing it with more than just Shedeur and Travis. It's changed so much now that Stephen A. Smith is going over the number of teams that should have hired Deion Sanders, Think about where the conversation was when the Buffs hired him. It was CU and it was USF, and that's the list. Major Division I programs would not touch Deion Sanders. They didn't look at him like a serious candidate. We can't misremember the past here. The Colorado Buffaloes had one other bidder for Deion Sanders' services. It wasn't like there was this huge rush on Deion Sanders. There wasn't. And now Stephen A. Smith and others are looking back and saying, man, couldn't this school have used him and this school have used him? That's a different kind of attention. That's a different kind of conversation. That's respect. You know what that is? It's not 2 different kinds of attention. It's respect that the Colorado Buffaloes are earning. The 23rd spot in the AP poll is a sign of respect. The way they're being talked about is a sign of respect. Before, I don't know that they were respected. And I don't know that they did much to be respected. Like, you got to be fair. It's like, what did CU do to earn a lot of respect? But they're earning it now. And you could put all these metrics up: enrollment, attendance, TV ratings, merchandise sales, and you could say that Rick George made the right call. And for the entirety of Deion Sanders' time in Boulder, since it was announced, before it was announced, when it was just rumored, I said this would be the hire the Buffaloes need to make. And that had nothing to do with wins and losses. It had to do with relevance. right? Put Colorado football back on the map some way, somehow. And Rick George did it by hiring Deion Sanders. But now there's this added dimension of they're winning football games and winning football games in a variety of ways and winning football games by comfortable margins. And now the conversation has turned from Rick George hiring a coach that made them relevant, made people realize, oh yeah, Boulder has a football team, to now Rick George might have hired a guy that can actually win in Boulder. Now the conversation changes. Last year after the non-conference, and they went in the tank after that, I said, even though when you compare it to the year before, you have to characterize Deion Sanders' first season in Boulder as a success, that doesn't mean that they didn't fail to live up to the new expectations that were placed upon them after the non-conference season. It was a disappointing end to an overall successful season. Getting to bowl eligibility was the baseline for success. I thought that was something that Deion Sanders absolutely had to deliver. And now he's done that. They've reached that goal. But now with this newfound respect brings expectation. Okay, you got this job done. Yes, it's a better year than last year. Already, boom, done. It's a better year than last year. But after these last few games, they're being talked about differently. They're being asked to do even more. The expectations go up, and that's what you're supposed to want, right? You're supposed to want those expectations to go up because you want to meet those and you believe you can. Well, now here they are. I think anything less than 3 wins the rest of the way is a disappointment. That means you win both of your home games, Oklahoma State and Utah. Utah has now 2 quarterbacks that are hurt, and you split on the road between a bad Kansas team and a pretty good Texas Tech team. I think there will be disappointment if the Buffs do not finish with at least 9 wins. That leaves them very little margin for error. I understand. But look at where they are. Look at the way they've been playing. Look at their remaining schedule. I don't think it's asking too much if the team we have seen now, it's not just a one-off. 3 of the last 4 weeks, we have seen this team do all the things that good teams do to win football games. If they continue it, they should win 3 of their last 4. It shouldn't be that big of an ask considering who they have remaining on their schedule. 2, we can discuss. Anything less than that, and it's going to be reminiscent of the way last year ended. We're like, wow, they really got our hopes up, but kind of petered out there at the end. And they get a bye week to prepare for perhaps right now their toughest test in Lubbock against Texas Tech. Kudos to Deion Sanders, because he has transformed this program, but also transformed the way his program is talked about. It's not a novelty. It's respect. They're not a sideshow. They're a good football team. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Buffs win over Cincinnati and where they go from here. Coming up next, I told you, veritable cornucopia of sports topics. How about the Avs? This is the best time of year. I got everything. Baseball, hockey, basketball, college football, NFL. I'm going to hit it all before we're done here today. Let's talk about the Avs and why labels, they just ruin things. Speaking of, how about those switchbacks, huh? Had to sweat it out for a while on Saturday night. The situation was switchbacks win. They would go as high as the second seed in the West, and if they lost, not only would they drop to fifth, that would mean they would get no home games. But thanks to Juan Tejada, his goal, and Christian Herrera's clean sheet, the Switchbacks will enter the postseason as the number 2 seed, which, yes, means they will host the first 2 rounds. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves now, do we? Let's just focus on this Saturday night. They host Oakland Roots in the first round of the playoffs Saturday at 5. Experience the most thrilling sports venue in Southern Colorado and cheer on the Switchbacks to victory. Then after the match, experience a special playoff fireworks show. It all goes down Saturday, November 2nd, 5 p.m. at Widener Field. Tickets are going fast, so get yours at switchbacksfc.com. As I was saying before the break, labels can really mess things up, in relationships. You can have a good thing going, and then you decide, all right, we're this or we're that. We're going to announce this to the world. But then it just brings a whole new level of expectation onto it, right? Well, now that we're this, and we're not that, what else is asked of me? What else am I supposed to do? Does something have to change? Certainly, something has to change. If we're labeling it this, if we're this, as opposed to no labels, then there should be something to signify that this relationship is something more. It can work the opposite way too. It can make too much of something, but it also can diminish what is going on in said relationship, right? It's not the label that you were hoping it would be. So now you're like, hey, wait a minute. I'm more than this. We're more than this. Why are you diminishing what we have by calling it this, by labeling it this? It works both ways. Of course, I am talking about the Avalanche goaltending situation. I don't know how more clear I could be in all of that exposition I just gave. I'm talking about the Avalanche goaltender situation. For the last 4 games, Justus Annunen has been the goaltender of record for the Colorado Avalanche. That's not a label. That's just a fact. He's in goal in the Avalanche game. He's the goaltender of record the last 4 games. Tonight, it's going to be Alexander Georgiev. He will be the goaltender of record. He will be the guy in goal for the Avalanche. Nothing more, nothing less. We don't need to label one as one thing, Justus Annunen as this, and Alexander Georgiev as that. They are both Avalanche goaltenders. We can say that. Annunen starts last night, Georgiev tonight, and I think Jared Bednar is with me on the whole label thing.
It's not that I don't still view George as our number 1, but pretty much every position on our team, they earn their ice time. Like Kivi's getting more because he's earned it, Sam Malinsky's in the lineup over some D because he's earned it, So it should, Mac, Kale, those guys are continually trying to earn more, and not that they know they're going to get their ice time, but they're trying to be better and better. It's so that's what we need as a mentality of a team. We want to never really be satisfied with the way we're playing, that we're going to try and get better, work harder, just develop the habits that we need. And it doesn't really change for our goaltending. This could easily be Gorgie on a hot streak and we'd ride him. It's a long year, so just as of right now, we're just going to sort of take it easy and choose our best goalie the night before the game.
Yeah. Why you gotta put a label on it? Just hanging out. That's all we're doing. There's no need for labels. And you say, well, said the thing about the number one goaltender. Listen carefully to what Jared Bednar said there at the beginning.
It's not that I don't still view George as our number one, but
it's not that I don't view Alexander Georgiev as our number one, which could easily be answered by it's not that he's not thinking that. You know what I mean? He didn't say unequivocally that Alexander Georgiev is still the number one goalie for the Colorado Avalanche. All he's saying is me putting in Justus Onanen doesn't not mean that. The Avs are having a good time right now. Why mess around with labels? This guy's the number one. This guy. No, they got a good thing going. Just leave it be. Don't label it as more than it is. Justus Onanen got the last 4 games. Georgiev has the game tonight. That's what it is. Onanen has earned more ice time than Georgiev has. The way he's played. He's the better goaltender at the moment. He's not their number one. He's not their guy. He's not him in all capital letters. He's Justus. And more nights than not recently, Jared Bednar has felt like he gives the Avalanche their best chance to win. Don't need to label it. And last night, I thought Onanen showed more of that. Again, a key save leading to an Avalanche goal. He makes that save. Brady Tkachuk skated in and slid it across the face of goal, and Onanen sprawled out and made the save. Kept it 1-0 later. The Avs score, make it 2-0. That was a big save at that juncture of the game. And he's done that quite a bit over the last 4. Now, I do think he wore down in that third period. Ottawa touched him up for a couple of goals, and then it just became a shootout after that, which actually presents the perfect scenario for the Avalanche. Because even though you expected one to get one game and the other to get the other game, if Onanen stands on his head and shuts out Ottawa, may want be like, hey, he just shut out Ottawa, maybe give him the net tonight. There would be kind of a desire to do that. But since he kind of wore down in the third period, which I'm not surprised, have we ever seen Justus Onanen play 4 straight games? You don't have to think back that far. He hasn't been in the league that long. I don't think Justus Onanen has ever made 4 consecutive starts. It was a new experience for him, so I'm not entirely surprised that he wore down there a bit at the end of that game. But now it's easy. Like, okay, Onanen looked like he needed a break. So in comes Alexander Georgiev. Give him the net tonight, let Justus recharge, and then Onanen can go up against Tampa Bay on Wednesday. Easy. It worked out. And it worked out because the Avs still ended up winning the game. But even if they lost, it would even be more so, okay, we could see Georgiev now. I am very curious to watch Georgiev tonight. I want to see how he responds because this is really, again, no labels, but this is really the first time since he got to Colorado that Alexander Georgiev's place on the team is in question. And that's what made, last year's regular season why you felt so powerless. Because it's like, I know Alexander Georgiev's not having a good season. I'm not buying the goalie win propaganda that was peddled to me. I know, I'm watching the guy. I'm looking at the numbers. He's not good. But there was no one to challenge him. There was no plan B. And they just had to ride it out with him. Now, luckily, he found himself in the postseason. But this is the first time that Alexander Georgiev has to feel like his spot on the team, no matter what label you put on it, is in question. And he should respond. You would hope that he would respond. Jared Bednar, I think, hopes that Georgiev responds. I think Jared Bednar's dream is the Avs become the Boston Bruins in goal, where they're like, we got these two guys and we can flip back and forth and we feel great about them. And then when the playoffs roll around, I'll pick a guy. I think he wants that competition. He hasn't gotten it in Alexander Georgiev's time. If Georgiev doesn't respond tonight, then what? Then maybe some labels need to be affixed to one of these two goaltenders. I mean, even if we look at tonight's game and say that the Avs looked like they did before the 5-game winning streak defensively, because I go back to the point that one of the broadcasters on ESPN said, like, sometimes you have to choose the goaltender based on the way the guys play in front of him. If the Avs are disorganized and they're letting Chicago get to the net and all this kind of stuff, then as much as you say that's not Alexander Georgiev's fault, I think Alexander Georgiev has something to do with it. Justus Onanen has been this calm presence that has made this team confident. If this team is really loose defensively and they're getting beat a lot on odd man rushes, then you go back to, are they gripping? Are they trying to not make a mistake because they're fearful of what will happen to them if they make that mistake? Like, it's all of it. I think you assess all of it and say, if essentially tonight looks like the first 4 games, then this is, one, what does this mean for Alexander Georgiev? But 2, Jared Bednar has got a very, very easy decision. And I think what he would like is to have a very difficult decision, because that would mean both guys are playing well. Avs, Blackhawks, 7:00 tonight. It's a busy night. Of course, Monday Night Football with the Giants and the Steelers. You also have Nuggets taking on the Raptors. And you have, and we'll get into the Nuggets here next hour, Avs in action. Lot going on. Oh, and by the way, a baseball game of great significance is being played tonight as well. So just when you think it couldn't be any better, how about the Circus Sports Colorado app? Adding to the enjoyment of the experience this evening. And what Circus Sports Colorado strives to do is give the best experience possible for the better. That's you and me, but I'm talking to you. Games will strive to be a minus 110 split, unlike other sports books that more liberally use minus 115, 120. They keep as little money as possible on large market bets, and they'll have the lowest holds on futures as opposed to other sports books. And you know those other sports books, if you start winning, they're going to limit you. Not with Circus Sports Colorado. They are not limiting players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits. This is a sports betting app. If you're not a casual, this is the app you need. I'm not a casual. And that's why I use the Circus Sports Colorado app. Download it today. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Coming up next, Sean Payton continues to say the quiet part out loud. Welcome in, Drive Time Sports. Ryan Kaufman with you. A reminder, you can watch the show live on a daily basis as long as you follow us on a social media platform. Although we would love for you to follow us on all of our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300, Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Haven't figured out a way to get the show on TikTok yet, but I have a hard enough time keeping all of these social media platforms straight, so it's okay. Then TikTok could be your oasis away from me, because I will not find you on TikTok. 719-247-1313 is the text and phone line if you would like to chat today. A lot going on. It is a busy time of year. Sports equinoxes and all that. If I didn't know any better, watching the game yesterday, Broncos game more specifically, because I did watch many a game. If I didn't know any better, I would think that Sean Payton was still coaching in the NFC South. The way he is beating these teams feels personal. 3 wins against NFC South teams, the Bucs, Saints, and Panthers, by an average of 19 points. He's beating these teams by almost 3 touchdowns in each game. It feels personal. And it feels even more personal when you see what he's doing late in these games in order to try and keep the margin of victory at least where it is, if not add to it. Cornerback blitz in the fourth quarter of a game in New Orleans that the Broncos are leading by 3 touchdowns. A cornerback blitz. Is that really necessary? Did that situation warrant a cornerback blitz in a game in the fourth quarter that you were leading by 3 scores? Or how about yesterday? Not only a fake field goal with the game pretty much in hand, because let's be honest, the Panthers were never going to win that football game. And as the game wore on, it was more apparent that the Panthers were never going to win that football game. The Broncos are pulling out fake field goals, and Cortland Sutton is throwing passes. I mean, my God, I know that you felt bad that you didn't involve Cortland Sutton in New Orleans, but this is going a little bit above and beyond. The guy has 100 yards and he gets to throw a pass. Like, as much as the Broncos involve Cortland Sutton, he doesn't need to be targeted for like the next month. He has done plenty. They have more than made up for the fact that he did not get a single target against the New Orleans Saints. And it's not just me. It's not just me that's noticing this and saying, is all this really necessary? J.C. Horn, Carolina Panthers cornerback, getting very upset at what the Broncos were doing late in that game. Here's Sean Payton explaining what he and Horn were discussing after that game was over.
I coached his father, and so I was yelling back at him, and I think I don't know what the exchange was, but his father I enjoyed coaching, and I enjoyed him. He was frustrated. I think he was yelling at one of our other players, so I like him. I think he's a good player.
Okay. Today, Sean Payton, a little bit more direct, added the Burton throw from Sutton is trying to continue a drive, play better. That's a quote from Sean Payton today. The Burton throw from Sutton is trying to continue a drive, play better. Essentially, yes, I was running up the score. stop me from doing that. Which is what they always say, right? If you don't like it, stop them. Which the Panthers kind of did. I mean, those plays worked, but I'm just saying, like, they didn't let them score. Sean Payton hates these teams. He hates them. That's, I think, the big takeaway here. And it's got to be from the NFC South days. He just petty Peyton. He wants to run it up on these teams. That's what he was doing yesterday. Okay? So no one needs to make any, defend him. That's what he was doing. Okay? And he said as much. Well, he said they were trying to continue a drive. Why were you trying to continue a drive? So you could run up the score. That's what you were doing, Sean Payton. It's fine. I don't want to hear anybody, no, he was trying to run up the score because he hates the teams in the NFC South. And just like many, many years, it will come down to Sean Payton versus the Atlanta Falcons for the NFC South crown this year. But I do think that there's more to it than just he hates NFC South teams. It's that, but there's also more. Sean Payton was as unhappy a coach as you will ever find after his team won comfortably. Because that's what the Broncos did yesterday. They won comfortably. That game was not in doubt. I don't care what the score says. The Broncos were going to win that game. But Peyton was upset. And here's why.
It's not a good offense we played. It's just the truth. So we expected that, and we're going to see a lot better teams.
Again, Sean Payton saying the quiet part out loud. You know that the Panthers aren't good. I know that the Panthers aren't good. Sean Payton's not supposed to be saying that. But in the 2 years he's been in Denver, he's done this more than most coaches do. More than maybe any coach. Of just telling the truth. This, what's that? There's it doesn't matter. The movie popped into my head. But Radical Candor. It wasn't a movie. It was Silicon Valley. This show on HBO. This guy said he practices radical. I even forgot the word. Radical candor. Just telling the truth, no matter what the cost. That's Sean Payton. I said all last week that yesterday should look very much like the New Orleans game. They should be able to earn style points. They should have been able to actually run up the score. That's Sean Payton was trying to run up the score, but the fact of the matter is the Broncos didn't run up the score. They were unsuccessful in that endeavor. And the fake field goals and the wide receiver passes were trying to run up the score. Now, you can argue being successful on those things is earning style points, but that game wasn't the New Orleans game. That wasn't first quarter to fourth quarter a complete and utter domination. It was more, in the end, it was more about, my God, how bad are the Panthers? They're botching fake punt throws, and the Panthers are just so bad. That's why they didn't get back in the game. Broncos weren't dominating them. Into a team that's even marginally better than the Carolina Panthers, who are the worst team in the National Football League, that game, you would have been sweating it. Even a marginally better team gets that to within a one-score game and may have a chance to win it. Carolina, there's just no chance. And that's what Sean Payton is intimating. He's not impressed with beating Carolina by 2 touchdowns. He thinks they should have beaten them by 4 touchdowns. That it should have looked more like the New Orleans game, where beginning to end, the Broncos were relentlessly beating up on their opponent. And this team just didn't. And now, did they hit a wall? Did they let their foot off the gas? It really doesn't matter. Sean Payton probably should figure out why, but it really doesn't matter in the end. The fact is they didn't. And Sean Payton, like you and I, know exactly what's coming up the next 2 weeks. Beating up on the NFC South is all well and good. Beating the Jets, who just lost to the Patriots yesterday, is all well and good. They are taking on probably the 2 best teams in football the next 2 weeks on the road. Sean Payton is frustrated because his team did not dominate for 4 quarters. And letting up against either Kansas City or Baltimore will be disastrous for them. Those 2 teams don't need that big of a window. That's what he was frustrated about. Yes, it's a little his animosity towards the NFC South, those competitive juices flowing. You beat up on these teams for years and you want to keep doing it. But it's more about setting the Broncos up for the next phase here, which is teams that the Broncos are not better than, that they have to go on the road to play the next 2 weeks. And you can hear the frustration in Sean Payton's voice. He's not going to throw a parade for the Broncos beating the Carolina Panthers. And he had a message to his team after the game.
Their expectations can't be lower than mine. You know, as players, they have to. I said to them, we're going to play in bigger games than this, but in bigger games than this, some of those mistakes are going to cost us. So we've got to take care of that.
This is a huge step up for this team. Vegas, Carolina, New Orleans, the Jets, Tampa. None of these teams are Baltimore and Kansas City. I understand what Sean Payton is frustrated about, because I don't know how, and I was having this argument with somebody earlier today. I don't know how you can take what they did yesterday and go, oh, they're going to beat the Ravens. How? How? You got to explain that logic to me. The way they played yesterday against Carolina is not going to be Baltimore. And that's what Sean Payton's talking about. So I understand why he was frustrated. And even to a degree, I understand why he was pulling out all the stops and digging deep into his bag of tricks to try and get this team to move the ball in the second half. I understand the bigger picture here. But getting back to the whole J.C. Horn thing, You hear it all the time. The NFL can humble you quickly. The Denver Broncos are trying circus plays against the Carolina Panthers. That's all well and good. But now you're going to go up against a Baltimore team that is infinitely better than Carolina. You're not at home. And oh, by the way, the Baltimore Ravens were embarrassed yesterday. The worst thing to happen to the Denver Broncos was Jameis Winston. Because now the Ravens are not overlooking the Denver Broncos. And now you have this added dynamic of people don't, it's a small world, the NFL. Okay? And while you may just look, oh, JC Horn's just a sore sport and who cares? In the NFL, there's a coach that coached with a coach who coached with a coach that may have coached with John Harbaugh. JC Horn played with a player that plays with a player that may have played with Lamar Jackson. You think about Sean Payton saying what he said about Nathaniel Hackett, the way they treated Russell Wilson, him now not only trying to run up the score on the last two opponents, but also basically calling Carolina garbage. You never know who that upsets, who that irks. There's a code, right? As much as I hate unwritten rules and codes and all that, it exists. So the Ravens don't need what Sean Payton does to motivate them. Like Jameis Winston, after the game, quoting Eminem like Eminem is a philosopher, and quoting Eminem's "Lose Yourself," which I love as much as the next guy. But it was, one of these, it's the closest Eminem gets to like pop. Like it's not even one of his more profound songs that he ever wrote. Jameis Winston, after that win, is quoting Eminem's "Lose Yourself." Oh, the Ravens are so angry about this. They are so angry. And now their full and undivided attention is on the Denver Broncos, who couldn't even figure out a way to play 4 complete quarters against the lowly Carolina Panthers. I know why Sean Payton's upset, because he sees what I see. And unless this team plays the way they did in the first half, the entirety of the game, Baltimore is going to crush them. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Broncos' performance yesterday. Sean Payton running up the score. All that good stuff. Coming up next, why 2 Heisman candidates on one team is just one too many. Help us celebrate this Veterans Day by giving our heroic service members a very special salute. Head to extrasports1300.com and tell us about the veteran in your life, and we'll select 5 deserving winners to each win $1,000 in our Veterans Day thank you, sponsored by University of Maryland Global Campus. Join UMGC in thanking veterans for their service. So Saturday, significant win for the Colorado Buffaloes because it gets them to bowl eligibility. But I also pointed out last week that this game was important on an individual level for Travis Hunter to get back into the Heisman Trophy conversation, because you've seen the odds have started to get a little bit longer for him. Ashton Genty had kind of more taken over that conversation, has led that conversation with the last couple of weeks when Travis Hunter's been banged up. So I thought it was a big game for him to get back in the race here. And boy, did he. Big 12 offensive and defensive player of the week. Career high in receiving. How many passes did he break up? 7. He was all over the place on Saturday, as he tends to do. Only missed, 3 snaps? I thought he absolutely did that. Absolutely got back into it. And the timing could not be more perfect, because Ashton Genty, and I am going to say this with a straight face because it's the truth, given what Ashton Genty has done this year, but he had kind of an off day against UNLV. 133 yards and 1 touchdown. 1 touchdown? Ashton Genty? Come on, dude. Cam Ward didn't eviscerate Florida State. So I think Travis Hunter, and I haven't looked at the odds, but I figured Travis Hunter's right back in the thick of this race here for the Heisman. I still think you have to put Genty number 1 if we're doing power rankings here. But I'd probably have Travis Hunter second. Cam Ward third, and Dylan Gabriel best player on best team type designation as fourth. But I think in many ways, Travis Hunter was kind of on the outs. I think he's going to go to New York. I think it's already, there's enough there to say, as long as he's playing and he's out there and he's playing both sides of the ball, he's going to be invited to New York. But in terms of his chances of winning, I think he needed a performance like that, and was helped out even more by games that did not live up to the insane expectations that we set for Cam Ward and Ashton Genty. They didn't play poorly by any stretch of the imagination. They just didn't have mind-boggling numbers. Cam Ward didn't have the late game heroics. So I think Travis Hunter's squarely back in it after a couple of games that really the only thing that took him out of it was health. It's not like he was torched in any one of the last 2 games. So I think Travis Hunter's right back in it. But that brings up the curious case of Shedeur Sanders. Because Shedeur was spectacular on Saturday. He was. As good as Travis Hunter was, Shedeur was equally as good, given that he is the quarterback. Shedeur didn't play the defensive side of the football, but he did about everything he could on the offensive side, including delivering the ball to Travis Hunter He was great. What, 4 incompletions? Even Deion Sanders didn't quite know how good Shador was playing until the end.
Wow. See, you don't even know that stuff because you're into the game and you're coaching. You don't even think about that kind of stuff. I remember, I think he did that one time in Jackson, that he was phenomenal like that. But wow. And they don't even mention him about Heisman. He's not even mentioned. Oh, my bad. He's my son. That's why.
Okay. Here we go again. Shador is not being left out of the Heisman conversation because he's Deion Sanders' son. I talked about earlier how the conversation has changed. Colorado is getting respect. I understand that's a popular card for Deion to play. I really don't think it has anything to do with what his last name is. The closest thing that I could compare it to. Think about Mookie Betts on the Dodgers. Mookie Betts is easily one of the 3 best players in baseball. He just so happens to be playing on the same team as the best player in baseball. And not only is Shohei Ohtani the best player in baseball, he's doing something that we haven't seen in our lifetimes. Right? And I know he's not doing it this year. But Ohtani is like this larger than life athlete right now. Like he's more than he's like a demigod. He's like Thor. And you have the added spectacle of Ohtani and what he's been in his career, pitching and hitting at a high level. Notable because he's just moving to the Dodgers this year and all the hoopla that comes with that. And meanwhile, Mookie Betts, who all the guy's done is played about every position on the field and done it at a high level. I mean, Mookie Betts is awesome. And you could almost make the case that Mookie Betts is just as multifaceted as Shohei Ohtani. It's just that Ohtani pitches and hits, which is extremely rare. In fact, we don't see it. And Betts is just moving around the infield and the outfield. Mookie Betts suffers from the same thing Shador does. It's not that Mookie Betts isn't good. It's not even that Mookie Betts isn't arguably the best player in baseball, but he's playing in the shadow of such a huge figure in baseball that it feels like Mookie Betts just doesn't get talked about. Right? It's Ohtani all the time. And with the Colorado Buffaloes, it's Travis. I've said that Shador is the best quarterback in college football. He's going to be the number 1 quarterback taken in April as long as Deion doesn't say you're not going there. No one is diminishing what Shador Sanders is doing. I don't even think people are saying that the success of Shador is only because of Travis Hunter. I don't even think people are doing that. It's just that Travis is the best player in college football. And he's just doing something that's so phenomenal that it's hard to have time to talk about anybody else. And you know who understands that perhaps better than Deion Sanders? Shador
they're not gonna give two players on the same team. You get what I'm saying? Me and Trav. They're just deal with it's not gonna happen like that, you know. So it is what it is. I don't really look too deep into that. I just want Travis to win, of course, and that'll be almost like I won because I threw the ball.
See? Dion should be like more like his son. Nobody's trying to disrespect Shedeur Sanders. Nobody's diminishing what he's doing. But what Travis Hunter is doing is so amazing. College football is a big world. There are a lot of teams and a lot of really terrific players. And Shedeur just so happens to be playing with the best of them, who casts a pretty big shadow and eats up a lot of column inches. But what Shedeur's doing is amazing too. He's been unbelievable, save for a couple of throws. The only, I mean, Nebraska game was bad, and outside that, he's had like 2 bad throws since. That's it. He's been awesome. I think Mookie Betts can empathize with Shedeur Sanders. But what they both have in common as well, they both just want to win. 719-247-1313. Take some of your texts. Also, could it be possibly that the shooter that Nikola Jokic was asking for after opening night is actually Nikola Jokic? Your Colorado Springs Switchbacks are in the playoffs with their highest playoff seeding ever. And they're hosting Oakland Roots in the first round this Saturday at 5 p.m. Experience the most thrilling sports venue in Southern Colorado and cheer on the Switchbacks to victory. Then after the match, experience a special playoff fireworks show. It all goes down Saturday, November 2nd, 5 p.m. at Widener Field. Tickets are going fast. Get yours now at switchbacksfc.com. I want to remind you of what Nikola Jokic said after the Nuggets lost opening night to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Take a listen.
We are not good shooting team, I think. Except probably Mike and Jamal. We are not like all of us are like kind of streaky, not streaky, but just average shooters. So yeah, but we have something else. We can probably be better, have advantage in some other things on the floor.
So, Saturday afternoon, the Denver Nuggets, who by Nikola Jokic's own measure have two above average, consistent, good, however you want to phrase it. They have Jamal Murray and they have Michael Porter Jr. So doesn't it just seem about right that the guy who steps up and sets a franchise record and a career high for three-pointers made is Nikola Jokic? It really is fitting, isn't it? Because anytime the Nuggets lack anything, it's the guy who does more than anybody else who then adds another piece of his game. 7 3-pointers from Nikola Jokic. And in fact, Michael Porter was 0 from three-point range in that game. So he would have to amend that and say it's not Jamal and Porter that are the good shooters. It's Jamal and Nikola Jokic. Could it be, because Michael Malone has talked about this, that he would like to see Nikola Jokic take more three-pointers? And when you watch Nikola Jokic, unless there are really only two ways that I could see Nikola Jokic making a significant addition to his portfolio in terms of skills and what he does on a basketball court. One would be if he turns into, Tim Duncan as a shot blocker, or he starts hitting three-pointers. And can you imagine how scary he would be if he could consistently shoot three-point? I'm not saying hit 7 in a game, but if he could consistently knock down three-pointers, you know how much scarier Nikola Jokic would become for opposing teams? He's unguardable as it is. And now he's going to bring you out to the perimeter and knock down a three in your face? But this is what happens. Anytime the Denver Nuggets, there's something to be called out or something lacking, it's just Nikola Jokic. He's the guy that got. It's not enough that he's their best passer, their best scorer, their best rebounder. Many times, believe it or not, their best defender. Now he's got to be their best shooter too. Like, when is it going to be anybody else on the Denver Nuggets that heeds the words and takes it upon themselves to be better? Nikola Jokic was asked by Vinny Benedetto, friend of the program, Nuggets beat writer for the Gazette, asked him if it's a challenge to stay patient because Nikola Jokic, triple-double in game one, over 40 points, franchise record for three-pointers made in a game on Saturday. It's hard to look at Nikola Jokic and say, hey, you're not doing enough. Is it hard for him to stay patient as the Nuggets work through things? This was the quote from Nikola Jokic. Just because I scored 40 today, that doesn't mean I played good. I think we all need to be better. I think we don't need to question my patience because I'm with the guys. I'm not separate from them. Just because I score a lot doesn't mean that I played good or I played bad. I think we all need to be better. Here's the thing, though. He so doesn't. Nikola Jokic so doesn't need to play better. The guys won 3 MVPs. The guy is the best player on planet Earth right now. I would prefer someone else, anyone else, step up. At some point, it's fine. Like, Nikola Jokic doesn't play great every game. The guy got a triple-double in game one and scored over 40 with setting a franchise record in three-pointers on Saturday. I'm not looking at Jokic first and saying he needs to be better. It's not Jokic that needs to be better. It's everyone else. That's the entire point. The entire point of this season is you have one guy that is not playing with an all-star, not playing with an MVP, not even playing with anybody that would be consistently a star year in and year out. That's the entire problem, is that this team continues to lose players from their championship team and nobody is stepping up. I mean, think about it. Jamal Murray was great in the playoff run 2 years ago, right? Absolutely. Since then, he's been worse. Porter in the next playoffs regressed just like he did in the title run. They lose Pope. They lose Bruce Brown. They bring in Russell Westbrook, who isn't working. The bench is still awful. And I get it. It's only 2 games. But I compare it to the Avalanche in their rough start. They made a change. They shook things up. They said, Justus Onanen, it is your goal. You're our goaltender. And that changed everything. Where's the similar move for the Denver Nuggets? Why does every question about the Denver Nuggets have to be answered by Nikola Jokic? It shouldn't be. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, but he's not a perfect player. Right? The best players in the world have holes in their game. Nikola Jokic isn't a good three-point shooter and isn't a great rim protector. Everything else he is unbelievable at. Can someone else please take it upon themselves to elevate their game? Can someone join Nikola Jokic? That's what's been lacking the first 2 games. It's been Nikola Jokic and no one else. So tonight, in about 30 minutes against Toronto, can it be Nikola Jokic and one other guy? I'm not even asking for the I'm not even asking for the bench. I'm just saying another starter. Nikola Jokic says we don't have any good shooters, and he's the one that goes out and sets the franchise record for 3-pointers. This guy's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that he does this. It shouldn't all be on him. And yet he has to, say things like, I'm with the guys and everything, and I'm sure he is. But we have seen the cracks here. We have seen Nikola Jokic frustrated. I can't clone myself. We don't have good shooters. Like, he's getting frustrated. He shouldn't be. There should be enough to help him out. And through the first 2 games, there aren't. It's Jokic, and that's it. If it can't happen against Toronto, then when can it happen? Somebody else has got to have a big game tonight. In fact, I would like nothing better than for Nikola Jokic to get into foul trouble and somebody else have to bail them out. I want one game, load manage Nikola Jokic, sit him, Michael Malone, just to show the rest of the team, like, you guys have got to do something yourself. It can't be all number 15. Now, Michael Malone's not going to do that, but it would be a fun experiment. And what better time to experiment than game 3 of the regular season on a random Monday night against Toronto? Like, just try it. Or maybe Jokic should. Maybe Jokic should intentionally get himself into foul trouble. So the minute that the bench looks awful like they did on Saturday against the Clippers, they can't turn and wait for Nikola Jokic to come back in. Dario Saric has to do something. Tonight is the Dario Saric do anything challenge. Do something. It's always Jokic. Nuggets 5:30 against Toronto. If somebody else doesn't step up tonight, I don't. Maybe this is the scenario in which Nikola Jokic wins a 4th MVP, is that it is just him the entire season, like it was when Jamal Murray was hurt for that entire year. Remember when he dragged that team to the playoffs? Maybe that's how. Forget averaging a triple-double. That's probably going to happen. But if it's just him this whole time, then maybe he's going to win a 4th MVP. Somebody else. Anybody else. Nuggets Raptors 5:30 tonight. Did you know that you can now use your own body's healing properties to revitalize your achy joints and get you real lasting pain relief? It's true. I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics. If you're tired of arthritic pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder, this is something you need to check out. You can enhance your joints, improve mobility, and get back to doing the stuff you love without pain. And you're doing it without the use of drugs, without having surgery, and there's no downtime associated with QC Kinetics treatments. They've got tens of thousands of satisfied patients across the country, many of them right here in Colorado Springs, and the consultation is totally free. Call now, take action to get lasting joint pain relief with help from QC Kinetics, 719-347-1988, 719-347-1988, QC Kinetics, 719-347-1988. Hello there. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Monday. Ryan Kaufman with you. It is Monday, which means it's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs. With craveable wings, ice cold beer, plenty of big screen TVs, and the world famous Hooters girls, it is the number one franchise in the league. Tonight, catch the fan filler 10 boneless wings, fries, a dressing, and a drink for only $16.59. Get into Hooters of Colorado Springs for all the football action, and we will have the football action here on Extra Sports 1300 as well. Steelers and Giants tonight. A busy night. This is what we in the business call a sports equinox. World Series, NFL, hockey, basketball. Keep saying it. It's a great time of year. And this was a very busy weekend of sports. To whittle it down to just 3 stories that are driving the show was very difficult. But I have accomplished that goal. Here they are. All right, story number 1. Sean Payton coaching like he's still in the NFC South.
Floats one to the end zone. He wants Troutman. One-handed catch. Touchdown, Denver. 19-yard strike. Bo Nix.
Broncos radio on the call. Denver beats Carolina 28-14. They have now swept through every NFC South opponent, save for one. That happens in 3 weeks when they take on Atlanta. But it's actually quite unfortunate that the conversation has become what it has, because I think yesterday, especially in that first half, was the finest throwing performance of Bo Nix's young career. And that throw to Troutman was one of them, was part of it, I should say. 10 days after it looked like Bo Nix could not operate properly in the pocket, he torched Carolina from the pocket. He went through his progressions. He set his feet. He stepped into his passes. Not only did he throw it where wide receivers were, he threw it where they were going to be. He threw with anticipation. And I don't care who the opponent is, everything that Bo Nix does is significant. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all a part of his development. And he is still a rookie. So even the Carolina Panthers are a level of team that he did not face in college football. So that should be the big story today. But unfortunately, because of the way Sean Payton tried to get his team to produce more in the second half, that has become the story. J.C. Horn yelling at the Broncos and Sean Payton after, accusing them of running up the score, and many people believing that's what the Broncos did. And many people would include me. They were trying to run up the score. And yes, I think part of it is because he just hates the NFC South. But I think the bigger point is he was frustrated because this was their last game before their schedule picks up, right? At Baltimore, at Kansas City, you take on Atlanta at home. They're getting ready to face a different class of NFL team. And he wanted this team to at least put together a full 4-quarter performance against the lowliest, the worst franchise in the National Football League. And that's why he was faking field goals and having Cortland Sutton throw passes. But that is running up the score. He was trying to run up the score, but the reason for that is more because they are about to step into an environment where they are facing one of the best teams in the NFL that just got absolutely punked by Jameis Winston. What they did in totality yesterday against Carolina is not going to be nearly enough to beat the Baltimore Ravens. And that's what Sean Payton was trying to get his team ready for. To beat the best teams in the NFL, to truly be a playoff team, you have to knock off teams that are better than Carolina and the Jets and the New Orleans Saints. And the way you do that is by playing a full 4-quarter game, and he did not get that yesterday. But Bo Nix's finest performance throwing the football this season overshadowed by what transpired in the second half. And the perception that I believe is not far from reality that Sean Payton was trying to run up the score on the Carolina Panthers. Agree or disagree with him, you have to acknowledge that's what he was doing. It may not just have been because he hates the Carolina Panthers, although that kind of feels like part of the reason. It felt personal. But I think it's more about he wants this team to continue to play for 4 quarters, continue to move the ball, continue to put up points, because that's what it takes against the elite teams in the NFL. And the Denver Broncos haven't really played many elite teams in the NFL. Play good teams, Pittsburgh, LA. They haven't played elite teams, Baltimore, Kansas City, and that's what they have the next 2 weeks. Here's story number 2. As the transformation may be complete in Boulder.
Sanders taking a shot, got a man! Room service, touchdown! Hunter!
ESPN on the call, the Colorado Buffaloes with another double-digit win over a Big 12 opponent. That's now 3 in their last 4 games. Yes, Travis Hunter and Shedeur were at the heart of it. But you don't get these kind of wins if you're just Shedeur, Sanders, and Travis Hunter. We saw just Shedeur and Travis last year. There weren't many wins like what the Buffs have been getting lately. And the conversation about this team has changed. And now they've backed up a good performance against Arizona with another good performance against Cincinnati. They are being talked about as a good football team. They are earning what they are getting. It is not being handed to them. That top 25 ranking that they have, they earned it. Because they're playing like a good football team, because I think they are indeed a good football team. They got to bowl eligibility, which was my benchmark to characterize this season as a success. But now, like last year after the non-conference, the expectations go up. They ask for more. And I'm saying this team should win 3 of their next 4 games. The team I've seen over the last 3 of 4, over the last 4 games, should win 3 of their next 4. That's what comes along with getting the respect and being viewed as a good football team. Expectations go up, and I think they've gone up a little bit. This season, now a success, but there's more. And there's more that this team should accomplish. And they will be only ranked higher when they go into Lubbock, because the Colorado Buffaloes will beat the bye this week. I promise you. Here's story number 3.
Middle step, nice hands in front. Shot, score! Logan O'Connor, ask and you shall receive. He pops it home from point-blank range. That's his first of the season. and the Avs have taken a 3-2 lead. Great cycling and great play again by Casey Middlestat.
Altitude Radio on the call. The Avs get another win with Eustace Onanen in the net, but I want to jump off what Mosier said there. I said earlier that the whole goaltending thing, we don't need to label or proclaim anything right now. Jared Bednar's just going to roll with the punches. It seems like Onanen gives them the best chance to win, but he's not going to call him the number one or anything like that. And I think that's right. I think we're okay labeling Casey Middlestat as a second line center, as the 2C that this team desperately needed after losing Nazem Kadri. The guy has back-to-back games with 3 points, and only 2 games this year has Casey Middlestat now not factored into the scoring. And he doesn't even have Nichushkin, Duran, Lehkonen. 2 of those 3 guys are going to play with him. And Casey Middlestat we focus so much, and I'm guilty of this, but we focus so much on what the Avs did not have going into this season. And anything that we focused on that they did have was McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar. Even if they get everyone back, they still need something more, I think, to win a Stanley Cup. And that something more can be given to them by Casey Middlestat. You look at this team, it is chock full of guys who are already in their prime. Casey Middlestat's not. There's room to grow. There's a ceiling here, and it's a pretty high ceiling. And so if the Avs get everybody back, certainly they will be on the short list, and all those guys are productive. Certainly they'll be on the short list of teams to win a Stanley Cup, but you still may look at this team and say, where's the little bit extra? We know what McKinnon is. We know what Rantanen is, Makar, Nichushkin, Lehkonen. We know what these guys provide. Casey Middlestat provides that growth where the Avs could be better. And we've gotten so caught up in the goaltender situation that I haven't been noticing as much as I need to how well Casey Middlestat is playing. I mean, I see it. It's just the goaltending thing has been the number one story. But this is a guy that hasn't hit his prime, that hasn't hit his ceiling, hasn't topped out yet. And we talk about this guy and that guy and this guy missing. Well, Casey Middlestat is playing with their replacements and being incredibly productive. Tonight, Avs take on the Chicago Blackhawks. Alexander Georgiev will be in goal, but Casey Middlestat will be the second line center. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. We have Monday Night Football coming up at the bottom of the hour, so I want to spend the rest of the show taking your texts and maybe a World Series thought before we go. text messages before we get things to our friends at Westwood One Sports for Monday Night Football. The Fighting Russell Wilsons taking on the Fighting Daniel Joneses. Yeah. Less we say about tonight's quarterback matchup, the better. Let's go to the 719. Denver and CU look like football teams finally. I don't think Denver ran up the score yesterday. 28-7 before the late touchdown is not a blowout in comparison to the Lions putting up 52 on Tennessee, who had 14? That's fair. Denver has a top 3 defense. Baltimore got beat by the struggle bus Browns. If Denver can play great defense against Baltimore, not give up the give the ball away, I think Denver wins. Keep Lamar off the field, score on 90% possessions. Should be a good one to watch. I think look, they didn't running up the score doesn't just have to be a result, because I agree with you, 28-7 and then a late touchdown made it 28-14. The score line doesn't say Broncos ran up the score. Their actions said they were trying to. They were trying to score more points in that game by going outside of the norms that you would go when a game is pretty well in hand. And it was well in hand. The Panthers weren't going to beat them. I'm not saying I have that big of a problem with it. But I can identify that's exactly what Sean Payton was trying to do. And what you said about the Ravens is true, except for that makes them not overlook the Denver Broncos at all. Right? And the really good teams, they don't let one loss turn into 2. There is no chance that the Baltimore Ravens overlook the Denver Broncos. They're going to give their all to beating Denver. And in the NFL, if you're trying to dunk on some teams or you're doing something that's maybe in a gray area in terms of what is sporting, the league has a way of dispensing some cosmic justice. But given what Jameis Winston did to them on Sunday, I think the more prevalent issue is that the Ravens are pissed. And that's not the type of team I would want the Broncos going up against. I would want a Ravens team that was riding high, booking their tickets to New Orleans for the Super Bowl, thinking that they have essentially a bye week playing the Denver Broncos. I would want the Ravens to overlook the Denver Broncos. And we'll talk about it tomorrow moving through the week. The Broncos are taking a step above their weight class, maybe a couple of steps above their weight class. The Broncos are a middleweight in the NFL. They're middleweight. Pretty good middleweight. But they're a middleweight. And over the next 2 weeks, they're going to be competing against heavyweights. We've seen them against light heavyweights, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, and you saw how those games went. Now you're taking an even bigger step up. And are the Broncos ready for that? We will find out on Sunday, won't we? Tom says, stop being soft, Kaufman. Not being soft. You're being soft. Don't make this a peewee football game. It's the NFL. Stop crying. If Peyton wants to try new plays or wants to run up the score, great. Play better. Saints, Panthers, and Bucks. I'm all for hating divisional foes and being anti-NBA. Hey, bro, great game. I'll see you at dinner tonight. Soft. Well, I did say that I don't know. I don't have a big problem with Sean Payton doing it, but it just needs to be recognized for what it was. And then that's why we got into the reasons behind it. He wasn't trying to run up the score just to run up the score. He was trying to run up the score because he wanted his team. It was a little bit about Carolina, but it wasn't all about Carolina. I do think that he harbors some ill will towards the teams he used to go up against twice a year, every year. But I think that the bigger part of what yesterday was him trying to teach his team that we got to play 4 quarters. We can't let up. Because if we let up against Baltimore or Kansas City, they will beat us. That's his whole thing. But he was trying to run up the score. He was running up the score to teach his team a lesson more than teach the Panthers a lesson. Brett and Steve with thoughts on Bo Nix. Steve says Nix is going to have good days and bad days, but has to limit the bad days. And yesterday was a good day. Now he must put them together. Well said, poorly read by yours truly. But yeah, everything he does is consequential. Not every game is the be-all, end-all. Like, this is who he is forever. Even when I was comparing him to Taysom Hill last week, I said, this is not about what Bo Nix is going to be, but it's what he is now. And to his credit, he even kind of flew in the face of what I said because he was very composed in the pocket. His footwork was very good. And he threw the ball with anticipation, leading receivers. But yesterday isn't what Bo Nix is going to necessarily be for the rest of his career. And to your point, Steve, he's got to show some of that when he's under more duress, and he should be quite a bit over the next 2 games, especially in 2 weeks in Kansas City, who boasts arguably the best pass rush in the NFL. Ravens, their weakness right now is their defense. You see what Jameis Winston did to them. But even with that being said, Baltimore is much, 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 much better than Carolina. And I think that's what the next step with Bo Nix is. Exactly what you said. It's stacking weeks. It's consistency. We've seen him have a poor game and bounce back. Right? New Orleans passing the ball was not great. And against Carolina in the first 2 quarters, it was great. Bo Nix continues to show his ability to identify what's wrong and try to fix it and makes it look better the next time. Now it's okay, you corrected this, now sustain it. Now try to make some of those plays from the pocket against Baltimore and against Kansas City. Brett says, Bo Nix wins one of the next 2. He will be in the Rookie of the Year category. I mean, he's leading rookie quarterbacks in a lot of categories. Again, Jaden Daniels got off to a big lead early. Bo Nix is closing that gap. and needs to keep doing it if he's really going to be talked about seriously as competing with Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and others for the Rookie of the Year. That is my time. I appreciate your patronage on this Monday tonight. Boy, do you have a ton of choices. Nuggets getting underway right now. Avs at 7 o'clock. World Series coming up at the top of the hour. And right now, Monday Night Football. Enjoy whatever you may be watching, and I'll try to talk about all of it to some degree tomorrow here on Extra Sports 1300.